Hi, hello, my name's Helen Hatton and I'm chairman of Central Associates, a leading London-based intelligence, investigations and surveillance business. So my little blog today, I'm going to talk about the Pandora Papers and just give you a bit of an update about what our clients are worried about, what we do and how we might be able to help. So this story really started for me in its previous iteration, e.g. the Panama Papers. At that time, I was managing director of a firm called Sator Regulatory Consulting Limited, a Jersey-based regulatory consulting firm, funnily enough. And we were approached by the BVI Financial Services Commission to provide a manager for Mossack Fonseca and to act as the reporting professional to examine all of the various documentation, the breakdown in systems and controls, and produce a regulatory report on their compliance with the BVI AML regime. So we did that and it was great. I had a number of staff out there for 12, 14 months and I have to say they had the better gig, if you like, than I did, because I was just busy reading all of the data that was coming back and doing the legal analysis of the compliance with the AML legislation. The outcome, of course, was that they were fined and closed down, as you doubtless know. However, what was interesting with the Panama Papers was that was one firm's data. It was Mossack Fonseca. The second one, with which I had no direct involvement, was the Paradise Papers, and that was the law firm and trust company business called Appleby. And they unfortunately suffered a data leak, and woof, there it all appears on the ICIJ website, and away we go again. And now, third time round, Pandora Papers. But what's rather different about the Pandora Papers is, first of all, that it's not from any one firm. It's a dozen or so different corporate service providers and trust company businesses. And secondly, it is absolutely enormous. There are 11.9 million documents now in the possession of the ICIJ, or International Consortium of Investigative Journalists. And the breadth of the type of people and just the sheer numbers of folk impacted by this is absolutely huge. So what do we draw from it? Well, I think there are two quite clearly different points of view. On the one hand, and a position I have a great deal of sympathy for on a personal basis, we would like to think we all had a right to privacy. I believe it is actually one of the ECHR human rights, and it's reflected right across legislation in matters like GDPR and the various data protection enactments. Privacy is a fundamental thing. Your home life, your private affairs are things that most of us would prefer were considered private matters. On the other hand, the other point of view, of course, is that there is a general move, and it's a good trend, towards increased transparency. And that's particularly important with regard to our elected leaders, our politicians, and to our senior public servants in whom so much public confidence is entrusted. And also our very significant business leaders who we would like to believe and think were honourable in their business dealings, above board, and not engaging in various forms of skullduggery or, stashing hoards of proceeds of bribery and corruption in tatty little back pockets somewhere. So there are two, I think, completely legitimate points of view, and as with everything, the trick in this world is to achieve the appropriate balance. And I also see that that balance may be different for different sets of circumstances. So that's fine, but where does it leave our clients when they are concerned that their legitimate privacy requirements, perhaps they have quite exposed positions? They might be, for example, celebrities who are worried about stalking. They might come from, say, Latin American or some other jurisdictions where kidnap risk is very high. They're worried about their domestic addresses being known, perhaps the location of apartments, flats that they may have acquired, rented, bought for their children while they're at university. Protecting your family is a very, very basic and legitimate and perfectly reasonable requirement if you, for one reason or another, are in that kind of exposed position. So we're regularly tasked with the same two sides of the coin. On the one hand, parties who are thinking of engaging with a third party want to know whether or not there's any dirt. It's really about getting yourself into a position of informed decision making. So we would be looking at the reputation risk, managing your own reputation, being conscious of the infection capacity that others might bring to your reputation, or equally messes, if you like, that might be lurking around in your own past, which you would also like to manage and mitigate. It's about governance, putting a sort of control framework, if you like, a methodology around that, so that over a period of time your overall risk profile reduces significantly. So to give you some practical examples of how that might work out, think partners, think business partners, think spouses. Either of them can potentially damage your reputation significantly. A business partner, you would want to know their integrity levels, you would want to know whether they've got debt lurking, potential litigation, maybe even potential prosecution just around the corner. Whereas a potential partner in the spouse sense, you would want to know whether there were any of the aforementioned, or also you'd be interested in previous relationships, conduct, violence, domestic violence, drug problems. You'd be interested in paternity issues and so on. The type of things you'd be looking at in respect of key hires would be a selection of those items above. And if you were either embarking upon litigation, for example, against somebody, it would be great to know what was their background, and particularly whether or not there was evidence of previous bad faith in their conduct, or actual dishonesty, or actual previous lost litigation, or, for example, statements in a court judgment that might refer to the individual being an unreliable witness, etc. Equally, if you were embarking on litigation, you can be certain that the other party will be undertaking that kind of exercise in regard to your background. So much better if you can get a dossier on yourself and start to think about how you can manage, correct, or counter any of the allegations that might arise from various things in your own past. Of course, all these points also apply to mergers and acquisitions or to appointments. Now, appointments I see as being slightly different to key hires. A key hire, in my mind, is a new, chief executive of perhaps a listed company or a high-profile law firm or something along those lines, whereas an appointment might be an appointment perhaps by a selection committee as a new MP, or it might be heading a significant high-profile charity. It would be very unfortunate to appoint somebody with a bad track record in an area that was pertinent to the objects of your charity. Similarly, if we are on an asset tracing, asset recovery sort of a case, we want to build a pattern of life and a profile of the individual's conduct. So understanding their reputation and the kind of habits and practices that they have engaged in the past helps us very significantly to project and anticipate where and how assets might be hidden now in the current matter. So there we are. The Pandora Papers are simply one of the sources of information that we use, and indeed it's public source info. But the patterns, the habits, the tone that we get from those papers are very useful and lead us to all sorts of other very interesting and pertinent places. Thank you for listening and look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye-bye.